I hope you enjoy my arrangement of Jim Helms' Cane's theme.
Greetings, fellow classic TV fans, and welcome to the golden rage of TV Live. I'm your host, Pat McCormack, and I'm a show-off, as you could just see. I couldn't help it. One of my all-time favorite classic TV theme songs, and I didn't know it until I just started searching for theme songs to do renditions of. And when I came across this piece, and it's very creatively titled Kane's Theme, as in Kane, yes, Kwai Chang Kane. Jim Helms, the writer and orchestrator of that piece, wrote it specifically for the show. And I had heard it on the show, like most of us, but we get just this 30-second, maybe less, snippet of what the piece, well, of the main section of the song. And when I heard how much more there was to the piece, I was floored. I remember finding it on YouTube, good old YouTube, thank you, and playing it once all the way through. It was 4.5 minutes long, which was perfect. And I said, oh my God, I got to play that again. I got to play that again. By the 7th time, I was sobbing. I was sobbing because I was so taken with all the different harmonic movements that Jim put into this piece and captured, to me, it captured the theme of the show. It was sad but powerful, and it had all the Asian nuances to it. It was just astonishing. And usually when I would do these remakes for the golden age of TV, which there are many of on my YouTube channel, I would elongate them. I would generally have to, because they're really short. Not all of them. Some of them are full pieces, but generally we hear one section of the song and that's the part we recognize, and that's all they had to write. So it was actually a pleasure for me to write my own interludes within these songs. So I would break off into my own piece and then return back to the piece. I did not do that with Kane's theme. That is Jim Helms' theme verbatim, with all the modulations, all the builds, oh my gosh, what an incredible piece of music. And it was an honor and a pleasure deciphering it all. Back when I had ears like a donkey, I could take apart a symphony and make it happen on a guitar. So, okay, enough about that. Let's see who's here, gang. I saw there's quite a few folks here, and I can't get my mouse to work. Yes, I can. Oh my gosh, all my favorites. I see. Oh man, I should name you all, shouldn't I? Who's really good at this, right? Brother Dave. So I'll just give it a quick shot. Kimberly Wiederhold. Hi, Kimberly. That's a new name. Lance Chafin, Zoperplex. Waj Amin. Hey. Kenneth is here. Tracy Rothmeyers. And what do we got? Zoperplex, of course. Hungry Jerk Tom McCleskey's here. I'm guessing, I thought I saw Barry King. That Barry King guy from BK on the Air. I think he's hanging around. Tom Lemery. Hey, Tom, how's it going? Thanks for showing up, guys. This is, and of course, Daily Dan Staten. The good buddy Danny is here from South Carolina. Believe me, I knew I had to fix that one fast. So folks, I loved this show, Kung Fu. I was very young. I think it was probably 8 years old when it was playing, but I had older siblings, which is what actually helped me gain my love for classic television. They would have these shows on, and I'll never forget that one really moved me as a kid. I just got into it. Why? It's just another Western. Or is it just another Western? Is it just any Western? Fact of the matter is, my friend Christian Taylor and I came up with a genre title for Kung Fu. And here it is. A new age action adventure, martial arts, Western drama. Yeah, there's plenty of those. And so basically what we should have just said was unique. And it was. Um, why? Well, because, the concept of having this nomad searching in search of his American family. He's half Asian, half American, and he's looking for his family. And this is the Old West, so none of these guys, none of these wranglers, none of these gunfighters, none of these bad guys know anything about martial arts. So he always had the upper edge. I love that aspect because, let's face it, he'd just kick their butts and that would be it. And never fire a shot, which again was very interesting. The subject that I know is touchy for many folks, and we're going to get into it, believe me. But I want to give you just a quick little background on Kung Fu because I did study up on it, and here's what I know, and it is documented. Now, I know a lot of people are like, "No, you don't know nothing, Pat. This is how it is," and that's the passionate feeling that so many people have for this show for multiple reasons. Now, my passion for the show was just the fact that it was so dang good, so well acted, and so well written. And it was a new story every week. That was the other really cool thing. It was never, it wasn't Dodge City every week. It was somewhere new. And he was a nomad, and he was a Robin Hood, helping the downtrodden heroically, usually. But the man who created it his name was Ed Spielman. Ed Spielman, with the help of Howard Friedlander. Spielman just wanted to make a kung fu show, and Friedlander suggested, why not base it around the Old West? And so the story goes that Spielman was taking a martial arts course, and I think it was karate. And his instructor said, "My wife knows a technique that'll put anyone on their butt in 1 second, my little petite 80-pound wife." And Spielman what was that? It's Kung Fu. That intrigued Spielman. And when he saw it performed, he was like, "This is amazing, and nobody knows about it. I'm going to make a show called Kung Fu." So from there, the casting began. And this is, again, where it gets a little bit touchy. I did a poll on my YouTube channel here. I'm not even going to show it. There's no real need to show it. 80% of everyone that got on that poll said it should have been Bruce Lee. It really should have. And my question was, if you could go back in time and erase all history and be the casting person for that show, you had two choices, David or Bruce. Who would you pick? And again, Bruce overwhelmingly. I didn't even go for it. I wasn't like, I'm not going to even put this on Twitter because I know what's going to happen. It's going to be another, blow up for Bruce. So the thing about it for me, and gosh, we're getting right into it, is, again, what is documented? And that was that the show's casting director, Jerry Thorpe, wanted Bruce Lee to play Kwai Chang Caine. That was his first choice. They reportedly looked at every other Asian male actor that was in the Hollywood circuit for the role, but he was convinced he knew who he wanted, and for obvious reasons. I mean, right? Kato, he it's more than Kato. I mean, what he proved was that, right, he could act. And, the other thing that he proved was that he could choreograph incredible fight scenes, which I got to say, and I totally agree with everybody on this, if Bruce Lee had done it and had been the guy on it, the fight scenes would have been phenomenal. I mean, yeah, they would have been as good as the ones that we've seen in his movies. But it's there that I think the casting people and the creators ran into trouble. And in that, no one can argue this, Bruce Lee had a very, very thick accent. And it was noticeable in his role as Kato, and I mean, noticeable in all his films. And personally, although I thought he was a master and I look up to him and will always look up to him, I didn't see him as that great of an actor. I think if he had an opportunity or had the opportunity to cultivate that more before he died, it would have been, he would have just been, I mean, Chuck Norris, who's that? It would have been all Bruce. But he died, and way young, way too young. And it is my belief that it is because of this, because we got shortchanged in Bruce Lee, that a lot of people have that feeling that it should have been Bruce Lee in this role because we just wanted more Bruce. Now, if I'm wrong, feel free to disagree and take me to task on this one. But I believe, again, by looking at this poll and people's reactions and people's comments, everybody misses Bruce Lee. And that's not a bad thing. That's a natural thing, something that I share with you. And so this is why, here comes the hate mail. Watch out for me. I got Dave Sundstrom doing my administration here. He's looking out for he's doing some troll patrol for me. This is why I think David Carradine was the best choice for the role. There, I said it. Now, why? Why, Pat? What was so good about him? The dude could act. And I mean, really well. How does that happen? He comes from acting royalty. I mean, the Carradines, they made their mark, to say the least. And that's the funny thing, is that even though they'd hired him, they were still very reluctant because he was not reportedly too easy to work with. He had a bit of an attitude. He was I think the term is Hollywood brat. And that didn't matter, because what happened was he came and read and they were riveted. When Bruce Lee read, they were concerned. One, because they really had trouble understanding what he was saying, and that's not me saying that, this is them, which I believe, and that if they couldn't clearly understand his dialect, what would the American public do with it? How would that help the show? And the fact is, it wouldn't have, unless he really, studied up. And remember, the other big deal about this is that the character, Kwai Chang Caine, is half Caucasian. So yes, there was uproar when David Carradine got the gig from the the Asian acting community. They were like, "How dare you?" But the story itself is that he's not fully Chinese. He's what's the term? Half and half? I'm not going to say half breed because that's not good. But again, Bruce was not. And you could kind of look at David with the way he looked. His eyes were kind of had that Asian quality to them. So you could buy that he was half Asian, half Caucasian. And Bruce, I don't think you could buy that. It doesn't matter. Of course, everybody looks how they look. It doesn't matter what nationality their parents are. But I think visually, and as far as, again, fight scenes, oh my God, they would have been so great had Bruce done it. So there's my little speech where I gave up. I gave it up. I gave up my preferred actor in this show. Does anybody agree with me? I don't know. I'm looking at it. I think Bruce Lee would have been, well, let's see what Tom says. He would have been great, Tom. I agree. And I'd said that. It's just, to me, I don't know. And let's see, here's one. That's interesting. Lance says losing that role was Bruce Lee's downward spiral, I think. I don't know. I don't know that he spiraled down. My understanding is he shined bright right up to the very end. And there's Enter the Dragon, and I don't know. I didn't know if I felt too good about that movie. His performance, the again, the fight scenes, amazing. Now, here's a good point. It was Bruce's idea, and it was turned down to Cinematics into the Cinemax TV series. Okay. Let's get this clear. This is where it's very strange. This is where a very odd thing happened. And that is, if you guys can believe this, if you can buy into this, because I don't know for sure, I wasn't there. Two of the same basic ideas coming from two separate creative big shot entities at basically the same time. That's unheard of. And the odds, I don't know what the odds are of that, but it's not impossible. And I think personally, that is what happened. I know that Bruce was in an interview specifically where he talked about wanting to produce a Western called The Warrior, where he was, I don't remember how deeply he explained it, but that's enough, martial arts, Western, okay. And it was prior to the release of Kung Fu, the TV show. That's like, well, that's his idea. They stole it, right? They stole it from him. I don't believe that personally. Oops, I didn't want to push that button. Sorry, guys. I'm still here. I don't believe that. I think that it was an idea that was had at the same time. And again, how did it turn out? It turned out with, of course, what we got. And of course, then comes I don't know if they're rumors or just the way people started spreading it around. It, of course, was portrayed in the TV film of Bruce Lee, that it was his idea and they stole it from him. Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that could have happened. I don't know. I don't know the inside players well enough, but do I think by watching interviews with Ed Spielman and watching interviews with Bruce Lee that these two guys would have been dishonest about any of this? I think that it was just timing. I think it was a timing factor. And, there's a lot to be said about the fact that Hollywood is a pretty ruthless place. And I think, that kind of fuels what some people were like, well, they're all in it for the money. There's a book, as a matter of fact, I think it's by Jerry Thorpe, who casted the show. It's called Kung Fu, maybe it's a documentary. I haven't seen this yet, but it's Kung Fu. Yes, actually, I take that back. I have seen this. It's a documentary you guys can look for. It's called Kung Fu, The Journey from Grasshopper to Cane. And it tells the story. And it tells this story. And you think, that's got to be it. But again, I put that poll up and it was like, holy smokes. Everybody feels one thing and one thing only, and that is Bruce should have gotten that role. So I have a picture of Ed Spielman right here. Here's the guy that created the show that you all know and hate. I mean, love. He's the bad guy. Again, I don't think so. Speaking of bad guys, well, let's face it. There was something missing. And it wasn't acting, right? It was the ability to perform martial arts. Got to have that, don't you? And what was his secret? I'm sure a lot of you know, it was the fact that he was a trained dancer. And they worked with that ability, his coordination, to fake the fact that he could do Kung Fu. Add to that the invention of extreme slow motion, which became a very popular thing in many other shows like The Hulk, $6 Million Man. Where else did I see it? Well, it was a great way for kind of faking people out that something really intense is happening here, even though it's happening really slowly. But it worked. I mean, it worked for the story, And again, I think there was an outcry from the actors, the Asian Actors Union. It was like, wait, we got to have an Asian lead, and of course they did bring in some fine Asian actors. Matter of fact, here's one of my favorite, Master Khan. And yes, I do have the Pebble. The Pebble is with me, and I walked across the rice paper to get to this microphone and left marks everywhere. So I am not ready, clearly. No. But one of the things that I liked about the show was the fact that many of the flashback scenes, where they would go back to the monastery and show his upbringing and training and all of that, and the teachings. The teachings were from the Tao Te Ching, which is one of the greatest philosophical books ever written. And even though it's thousands of years old, I think, right, folks? Don't quote me on that, but it's been around a long time, and it still tells you things that are very poignant. And everything that came in those scenes came from that. So I thought, great, that was just amazing. Great care they took into that. But still, why not this guy? Again, I miss Bruce Lee too. And I think that's it. I think we miss him. I mean, again, he could act, right? Kato. Love that character. There's a bit of an irony here that Bruce Lee played Kato on, of course, the Green Hornet. Green Hornet's been around for a while. Now here you have a shot of Key Luke with David Carradine, Master Po, his beloved Master Po, whose scenes I loved every time he was on. I loved it because he had kind of a sense of humor. But isn't it ironic, or is it ironic that Key Luke was also Kato? Yeah, in the old movie serial, The Green Hornet, Key Luke played Kato. And I thought, wow, what is that? Is that just like the most ironic twist of fate? I don't know. I mean, it's pretty interesting. But what a diverse, talented actor. I loved him in my Star Trek. He was in Whom Gods Destroy, I believe, that episode. And just fantastic. Always good in everything. So, yeah, how much have I spilled my beans here? Nobody's fighting yet, right? Let's see. Anybody bring out the nunchucks? No, nothing. Well, so many people are still saying, that was it. It had to be Bruce. Well, I think what you mean is we wish it was Bruce. And I fully agree with that. But I do believe the fine acting of David Carradine made this thing live. So there you have it. Here comes the hate mail. I hope not. You guys know I'm just in this for fun, right? Pretty much. And money. Don't send love, send money. Wait, you can't send money yet. I'm not that established. So speaking of established, there were some guest stars on Kung Fu that you could say, if they weren't established already, we're going to become pretty established. And boy, it amazed me when I went through it, just how many of these folks graced the screen of this show. I was surprised. Here's an example. Number one. I suppose everybody knows who that guy is. Harrison Ford, sure enough. How about this one? A very young, well, not very young, because I think she started even younger than that, and talented, I might add, Jodie Foster. She was on there. Then there's this guy. Nobody knows who he is, I'm sure. Good old Eddie. Eddie Albert was on. Here's one that I found kind of interesting. Sandra Locke. Sandra Locke was a guest on an episode. She was in the movie Sudden Impact, and a few others actually with Clint Eastwood, not to mention being his significant other. at the time, but they filmed Sudden Impact, the Dirty Harry film, in my hometown here in Santa Cruz at the boardwalk. And yeah, who else? Who else, you ask? Klaatu Varada Nikto. Patricia Neal. Patricia Neal from The Day the Earth Stood Still and many other classic films. She was on it. And then this other guy, I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever actually going to recognize him. So maybe I shouldn't put him up, but what the heck? Do you recognize him? Yep. He's dead, Jim. Well, he's not dead yet, but he is Jim, is what I should say. William Shatner. Yes. And this was just a couple years after Star Trek. So they really went to town on the makeup there. And apparently, Ginger did get rescued. She got rescued and moved on to perform on other classic TV series. No more movies, just TV series. Tina Louise. Yep, there she was. Let's see. Here's another one that I found very interesting. Jose Feliciano. But of course, you got to have Jose on there. I don't know how that came about, but I will say this about Jose, besides being, let's face it, a phenomenal musician and performer, he wrote and performed my all-time favorite classic TV song, which is Chico and the Man. Just an incredible piece of music. If you guys haven't listened to that in a while, look it up and give it a listen. It'll make you feel good. It's just one of the most uplifting, getting technical here, chord progressions that I've ever heard and played. It doesn't hold a candle to Kane's theme. I mean, that is to me like a movie score or something to that effect. Just amazing. Let's see, one more I'll throw up here. And there he is. And whatever you do, we're all counting on him. Or should I say, whatever you do, don't call him Shirley. Or should I say, I don't know what I should say. You know who that is, of course, the great Leslie Nielsen. So again, sure, everybody was making the rounds around this era, but I want to believe they wanted to be on the show. Well, of course, they want to make money too. So it's like, oh, I'm doing it for the love of my art. Clearly, Kung Fu was a success. It was on 3 seasons. It ran from 1972 to 75 with a total of, I believe, 63 episodes. And, it stands the test of time. It even, inspired a couple remakes, which ironically, and here's another bit of irony with this show and the Bruce Lee situation. And that is the remake, Brandon Lee, Bruce's tragically late son, just like his dad, and great actor, played Kwai Chang Cain's son in the movie, the made-for-TV movie, Kung Fu, the movie. It was 1986 from what I see here, and it was his first acting gig. So it's interesting how things just kind of come full circle like that. And I'm sure he wasn't charging around the set screaming, "This should have been my dad's show." I think, these people all knew everybody was in a full-on creative process, and this is just how it came out. And it came out great, in my opinion. And Bruce Lee died way too soon. And that's not my opinion. That's just a plain fact. So, I kind of think, how many people really are swaying with Bruce just because it was tragic and he left so early? Maybe not. Maybe everybody truly believes that he would have been a better choice. But I watch it and I look back at it and I see Carradine's performance and I just don't see Bruce doing that. Bruce was too fast. He was too functional. He was too forward, go, 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 and that wasn't Kane's character. Kane's character was a very laid back California dude, obviously that's where Kane's family was. in California. No. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of people that would be like, "Pat, you don't know this, you don't know that." And I may not. I may not know a lot of things about it, but I certainly did pick up a good amount when I researched this. And, it's still kind of like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. What do we got here? Somebody's trying to start something. I can see that. Where did I see that? Oh, I didn't see it. Oh, wait, here we go. I'll put this up. I'm not trying to start crap, but Bruce Lee's daughter has a letter from Ed Spielman to Bruce saying, sorry about that, Bruce. Checks in the mail, Bruce. Uh, hmm. Yeah, I know that again. I had heard Bruce's wife made a fuss about it too, saying that yes, he was ripped off. And again, they put that in the TV movie on Bruce Lee, that is what happened. And let's face it, it wasn't a verbatim telling of the story. I think a good portion of that was fictional. So, again, it's fun controversy, but I just kind of feel like maybe we should all just kind of look at where our motivation is for why Bruce over David. And I mean, it was overwhelming, the response. So, okay, well, I had been recording videos for my next upcoming season. Yep, it's going to be a season 4 of retro TV trivia on the Golden Rage of TV channel. Season 4, 30 episodes. And I'm 4 in already. But I hope to debut that in September, late September, probably. The other thing that I wanted to mention was Golden Rage of TV is expanding to become its own podcast. Why is that? Well, I don't know. Other than it seems fun. I like interviewing people. It's a blast, especially interviewing these legendary celebrities. And not all of them are really thrilled about getting a camera set up, getting a mic set up, making sure the lights are right, pushing the right button. And some of them are on in years, so it's just like not worth it. And so it was put to me, hey, why don't you think? Why don't you think, Pat, and have a call in podcast where you can interview them that way. And I put it out there, and I've already got some great potential interviews. As a matter of fact, one is confirmed, and it'll be my first episode. I don't want to say it yet because it's still a couple of weeks away before we do the interview. I kind of gave it up on BK on the air. So if you want to go listen to BK's podcast, you might hear me spill the beans if he still has it on there. But I'm not going to do it here. You guys will be the first to know, but I'm not going to tell you. All I can say is she's legendary, big, and I'm so thrilled. And I gave it up. That it's a she. So, and that I'm going to launch on the 3rd Friday of August, which I had a date here. I think it's the 20th. Somebody know what the 3rd Friday of August is? Let's see how well you guys are listening to me. And no, I wasn't stoned when I played that. I don't know who wrote that one. Well, little, but not much. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Well, nobody's giving me a date, but I don't care. It's the 3rd Friday. I'll go with that. 3rd Friday of August with, should I say it? No, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to tease you. I will spill the beans here in a week or so. Also, I know a lot of you are curious about how Jerry Mathers is doing. And I've been in touch with him and his wife because I'm in production for his merchandise website. I'm actually going to be the spokesperson to help promote that, and thrilled as heck to be doing that. But it was while we were working on getting it written up that Tony died. And so everything went up in the air, and they had to travel to Tennessee for an event that they were committed to last weekend. And I got a picture sent to me from Teresa Mathers, Jerry's wife. It said, "This is basically what we're looking at here," and it was a close up of a Kleenex box, and then blurred out with fans in line to meet Jerry. And I thought, wow, that about it. And it was one of those large Kleenex boxes. So basically, a lot of tears and most likely a barrage of media outlets, people, interviewers, podcasters, whatever you want, trying to get a hold of Jerry and have Jerry be their guest to talk about this tragedy. And it isn't a tragedy. This, what I mean to say is this sad event. And because they knew he wasn't doing well. And so it wasn't a shock for anyone. They purposely didn't want me to bring him up in the interview that I had with him a couple weeks back, because it was clear he wasn't going to be around much longer. So the good news is they're back home. They're now more than likely dealing with friends and family, and probably friends, plural, and families, because when you're that big and you're that popular, there's a lot of people in your life. And I can only imagine what they're going through. It would be awful. You're thrust into the spotlight being something you want, but instead it's because your friend, your brother of 65 years is gone. And, it's just terrible. I get on YouTube and it's like, man, I wish they weren't so geared to the negative or the dark side of these stories. There's quite a few enlightening ones, which I'm happy about. But that said, that's what they're going through right now. And they're in process, and such a huge support team, such a huge group of people and kids, and just a lot of love. So keep them in your prayers and in your thoughts, folks, because I know that does some good. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you something. They deserve it. They deserve it because they're not these huge icons of, well, excuse me, yes, they are. But they're not that up here. They're friendly, loving, down-to-earth people. They're friends. So think of them that way, as your friends. As your friend. Well, my friends, speaking of friends, don't repeat your words, Pat. And my wife says I need to sit up more. So, hey, I already look better. Well, I'm cured, and I hope you guys are cured. I'm glad you all agree with me that David Carradine was the best person for that role, and Bruce Lee would have just messed it all up. Strike that last part. He wouldn't have messed it all up, and the fight scenes would not have had to be in slow motion. I don't think. If they were, you'd probably see a lot of what was even more amazing about Bruce. So, shoot, I wish he was there for the fight scenes. For the acting, no one held a candle to David Carradine. He owned that role. Okay? That's my opinion. With that, I'm going to wrap things up here. And hey, guys, so nice to see you all here. I see you all on the chat. And I want to thank Dave Sundstrom, too, for being my admin tonight. Such an honor, right? We all love Dave. And yeah, thanks, everybody. Your support is amazing, and it means everything to me. So let's keep it going. All right, everyone, have a tremendous rest of your week. And for now, bye-bye.